Hey everybody, welcome to AP Plus Podcast. It's just going to be me, Phil, along with my guest, Elliot, today.
Yo, guys. So
I'm sure some of you heard the Vive consumer price has been released, as well as the general release date. So it goes on pre-sale a week from Monday, and I think that's February 29th, I believe, for $799.
$800.
Yes, that's pretty. It's a very comfortable price.
It's weird that they still do the 99 thing in the hundreds of dollars tier.
But man, it just seems so much cheaper when you say $799. Ooh, I can't afford $800 though, but $799.
I could scrape up $799. Yeah. 99.
That's not so bad. No, overall, I'm really happy about the price. I think it's a good competitive price. You know, since you're getting the full room scale package, you know, $800. The Rift is just a seated experience with an Xbox One controller for now, and that's a $600 experience. So I think that's a good, $200. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and it comes with the hand controllers.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's a really big deal compared to Oculus, which is coming with an Xbox 360 controller, right?
Xbox One controller.
Xbox One controller.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and they won't be releasing their motion controllers until sometime later this year. We don't have a whole lot of details yet on that, which, it'll be good once they have their hand controllers because more people will be able to enjoy that type of VR.
But it creates a schism for their development.
It does.
It splits up the developers, and now you have a handful of developers that don't even care that there's hand controllers. They're just going to stick to the Xbox controller.
Absolutely.
And then you have ones that are just waiting for them to announce that tech so they can jump on it. And while they're waiting, here's Vive over here in the corner. Hey, we've got full-blown hand tech that's standard coming with our stuff. So they may have stolen those Oculus developers who have been waiting for the Oculus hand. Why would they be waiting at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a lot of these developers you're seeing with the Vive dev kits already, the Vive CV1 or the DK1s and the Pres, is they do have plans to do the motion controllers for Oculus later. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be coming out, at launch or soon after launch, and the only thing that consumers are going to be able to play it with is the Vive. So that's why all developers who are using the hand controllers are pretty much using Vives right now. And they're going to have to adapt it to the touch once that is launched. But it's just too bad. It's just, like you're saying, it's going to create a bit of a schism. But that might be a good thing. The schism could be healthy.
Yeah, as long as they have options, as long as they're not cutting people out and leaving them out to dry. Mm-hmm. I mean, the people that they have kind of shafted a little bit can really just go to Vive. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I'm the type of person who really wants the motion controllers up front. When I first heard about the headsets, my next thing was, what about controllers? That was like my next thought. And so I was following the STEM pack, the STEM system for a while. And I was just waiting. I was hoping that someone was going to announce something. And I was pretty bummed when Oculus, went with the controller thing. Yeah. But it makes sense, from a business point of view, that a lot of people who were developing with the DK1s and DK2s didn't have hand controllers.
Yeah, and there's a market for a VR headset with a traditional gaming controller.
Yeah.
There will continue to be a market for something like that for a while.
Yeah. And it is $200 cheaper, the Oculus headset.
But you can do that with a Vive. You can pick up the same controller. So it's a little well, it's interesting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was the best move for Oculus.
Yeah, I definitely think that the announcement of the Vive coming with controllers like a year and a half ago or a year ago, whenever it was, I think it was a year ago when they announced it. It was pretty much was a kick in the butt for Oculus, and that's why I think they announced their touch so soon after that, because they wanted to make sure that people realized that they were also working on hand controllers.
Yeah.
But I think it seems like, and this is just speculation, but it seems like they were kind of focused on maybe CV2 would be the hand controller one. The first consumer product was just going to be a headset, and then the next consumer product would be headset and controllers.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see what the state of things are by the time a CV2 becomes
Yeah, who knows what's going to be? Yeah, exactly.
That's.
Yep. I mean, the motion controllers is a huge thing for games. It changes the motion controller and also the room scale. Be able to walk around.
So, you were telling me about a comment that you read online, and just a discussion about this particular issue where somebody says, "Well, after a long day of work, when I come home, I don't want to be standing around and in VR anyway. I don't want to have to be crouching and jumping and running. I want to sit down and and enjoy my experience, sit down. And it's an interesting comment because it's both valid and invalid. You can I'll make a case for it, but there's actually there's a good number that's actually where he's not seeing the whole full picture of things too. On one hand, that it's totally valid. You know, I play games. Anybody who does play games, a lot
sometimes
of times
it is nice to sit down
to relax.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's at least half the time. You're doing it. You'd rather not be running and around.
Sure.
And but where I think he's kind of. But I want to validate the people who do. There's a whole group of people who actually that's totally for them.
Yeah.
But what's weird is that a person like that thinks that they want to play VR. That to me, that's an opinion.
I think they're missing a lot of what makes VR. I don't think that just the visuals is VR. I think that's like half VR.
And this is coming from someone I think I'm more interested in the sit-down VR experiences than anything else. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wouldn't describe myself as that thing. I'd be more than willing to try all the VR experiences that come at me, but I'm just particularly fascinated with the sit-down ones like spaceships and driving.
Sure.
That's all.
Like for me, I'm kind of like the opposite. I am excited about spaceships for sure, but I know that like I love standing, I love moving.
But I wouldn't say I wouldn't say what that guy said.
Sure, and that's
you know what I mean.
And the thing is, I get like what you're saying. I get the idea that sometimes you want to just sit and especially if those are the types of games that you want to play. But like, my main thing is just like, you know, for some people, like really, there's nothing that you want to try that's a standing experience. Like you can do 90% seated experiences. You know, and I totally get that, but like, really, there's no reason that you'd want to stand and play a game. Like, maybe I'm just so different from people like that because I do love to stand. I love to move. I don't like to stand still, but I like to move. And I think that's actually why I don't really enjoy playing games as much as other people do, is because it's weird having your adrenaline going while I'm sitting, you know, in a comfy chair. And so I do prefer to stand when my adrenaline's going. But there's games that are slow paced and fun. I mean, honestly, I think like playing a space sim shooter, sitting down with a HOTAS setup, you know, a hands-on throttle setup, like that's you know, it's like almost physical, you know? It's like, even though you're sitting, it's not really relaxing. So there's even seated experiences that I would argue aren't something I'd want to do after a certain type of hard day's work.
Right, yeah, and that's why, where I'm not in that guy's court, even though I'm just particularly fascinated with some of the, I don't even know if seated, but a little bit more the stationary VR experiences to come. But that's just because of but just games that I that I prefer over others and stuff. It's not. I'm still excited for the whole thing, and I don't look. Yeah, and I don't look as VR actually as a necessarily a relax. I look at it a step down from the day. I look at it a little bit more like watching a movie, where yes, you can watch a movie to wind down, but also a lot of people would consider themselves to like, oh, I don't have the energy to watch a movie right now. There's a lot of people you could say that, or you know, here's one thing: you watch an old funny movie that you've seen in the past. That's a relax. You know, a random movie on TV. You're just relaxing. But you go to the movies for something.
That's like a real like
go out
thing.
Yeah. You don't do that when you're like usually really tired. You do it when you're like you're up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're excited to do it, and you really want to pay attention. And when you're done, you're a little tired from it. Because it's, you just watch like an hour and a half or these days, a 2.5 hour movie. Also,
one thing I need, like, I think relaxing, it can, you know, I could go for a nice slow walk, like through nice environments as a relaxing thing. It's not a physical thing. Like that is relaxing. Driving a race car isn't relaxing, you know? So I think standing experiences can be super relaxing, I guess.
And they can also be stressful.
Yeah. And seated experiences can be relaxing and stressful.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. I wonder what that kind of games that kind of person plays. If he's commenting online like, oh, I just want to go home and relax, and I wonder if you were a little fly in the room, is he playing Call of Duty, like cussing kids out like crazy?
Exactly.
Like veins popping out of his head?
I think he has like stress release confused with relaxing.
Yeah, or is he playing like one of those really artsy PlayStation games, or it's like really like
Flower or Pedal or whatever that game was, where you're just like flying through
and you're like, okay, that guy wants to relax.
Yeah.
That guy's totally relaxing. But I'd be skeptical because I wouldn't be surprised if he was flipping out, cussing, getting headshots,
and also like
no scopes.
Maybe like his job is a mindless physical job. Then I could see him coming home and finding a form of relaxation in a mental, physically exerting
job.
Game.
Your mind winds up a bit, but you're not being physically exhausted while you play those games.
Exactly.
It's legit. I get that.
But but nowadays, most people's jobs are not physically exhausting,
right?
At a true deep sense. Construction workers is different. Obviously their job. I can totally get a construction worker just wanting to get home and sit down, crack open a beer, and play some seated game. I could see that. But I work in an office. Most people work at offices or at, or maybe not offices, but types of jobs that are similar to that. And you get home and
no physicality during the workday.
Exactly. I don't really want to sit too much. That's like when I get home and I want to work on my computer, it sucks. I'm like, God damn it, I don't want to sit. I've been sitting all day. So it's for me, so there's definitely biases and there's reasons why people are going to feel different ways. But
beer is not for everyone. It's going to offer something a little different to everyone, and it's not going to be valid for everyone.
Yeah. But that's why I go back to the whole, even if 90% of what you want to play is just going to be you sitting down, whatever, it's shocking to think that some people wouldn't even want to play it 10% of the time, a stand-up moving game. On the weekend or something, you wake up on a weekend morning, you wouldn't, have the physical energy to play a standing game.
Yeah, I know, and it kind of reminds me a little bit about where I think what's really going on with VR. I don't know if they are the future of games in a way where it's they may affect the game community, that's for sure. They may take a slice out of it or a bite out of it, but in a way, I don't know if it's going to ever replace what the majority of gaming is going on right now, which is Call of Duty, Destiny, that World of Warcraft, that type of stuff, which has the most players, the highest quantities of players, the highest are these games that go on and on. They're multiplayer games. And they provide at any given day you can log in and provide a constant level of stimulation.
And they just hit all those little satisfaction, marks. They give you achievements and glitter and things that.
And I don't know if VR is really actually going to replace that. I think of it kind of like watching a movie that all the time. Let's go put that same movie on because it's this.
Sure,
It would be exhausting.
Even TV series, sometimes I don't want to start them because I'm holy shit, this is going to be a lot of my life, And then when you get into it, obviously you can keep going, but it's daunting. It's intimidating when something is so much time dedicated to something. But games, for some reason, work with that, traditional games. But hopefully VR addresses it more the way movies do.
Yeah, it has the
it's entertain. It's good and it's fun, and you do it for a few hours at a time, maybe, or a couple hours at a time, rather than every free moment of your day.
And it being able to provide you with literally months and months, if not years, of constant gameplay every evening.
Yeah.
I hesitate to call that a game. I wish we had another word for that because it's not exactly the same as sitting down and playing a game like Last of Us. And what's going on with games these days, the way they cash in so much on multiplayer, it makes total sense from a business point of view.
Yeah.
Those multiplayer games just make so much more money.
They do.
You're constantly selling to those people, constantly, and people are constantly being involved with
you keep them until your next title as well, or your next expansion.
Which is very important.
They're very important.
They're specifically not trying the other games.
Yep.
And it's a tribal thing, specific, in the community. Totally very much so, where they're like, well, fuck those other titles, we won't even try them.
Yep.
This is, I got my own right here.
I know, and especially with those multiplayer things too, it's people make friends, online where they actually know people to an extent.
Yeah.
Or they have real friends that they play with as well.
Yeah.
And so it's all those types of factors that just really keep people.
You have to kind of get all your friends to go play this next game too. So
exactly,
it's built to just lock you in these little bubbles. It's really weird how that works, and that's called games these days.
I know. It's called games.
And yet and it's also called what VR has been put into. What's happening with VR is considered games.
It is
right now.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's too bad that it's being sold that way, but I get why it's being sold that way as well, because
that's all we can do with it.
And the people who have the computer strong enough to play these VR things are gamers.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's like for me, for example, honestly, all the money I've put into my computer and all the money I'll still have to put into my computer is all for VR, and it's not really for games. Although I'm going to be playing some VR games because that's what's available in the beginning, obviously. But I really do look forward to, like, I'm investing in this not for games. Like, I'm one of the people who's not investing in the game side of VR, but I totally get why they're using the gamers to fund this, you know, because it makes sense, because gamers, and it almost feels kind of...
They are mostly the people who are interested for now.
It is, exactly. But it's also interesting how even the gamer community is so divided. Like, if you go to, like not like a VR community, like a straight up gaming community. There's a lot of people who are completely unimpressed with VR still.
Absolutely, yeah. If you go to you go to any of the console gaming forums or subreddits, and none of them are impressed with what's going on in VR.
Yep.
They're not, and I'm not saying they should be.
Sure.
But I think it represents the natural divide of we're going to have to come up with some new word or something for what these VR experiences are, because the gaming community who plays games isn't even interested in them. So why even call them games?
Yeah, and especially since I would never call myself a gamer. Like, I'm not, because I'm not. Like, it would be dishonest of me to call myself a gamer.
Right, yeah.
And
like, how many hours of gaming did you put in this week?
0.
So yeah,
I mean, okay.
Anyone who calls himself a gamer would at least maybe say one.
Aside from at work,
but yeah,
in my free time,
unpaid hours,
I played 0 games this week.
I mean, and
because unfortunately, and my interest in games dropped even further the moment I heard about VR.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's what I wanted.
Oddly enough, to me, it caused a huge hit. Yeah, I would have bought a Steam game up until I found out the VR was becoming a real thing, and now all of a sudden, I feel distant from all these games I check out. I'm like, that's cool, but I feel like I'm just not interested in the same way. I'm just looking, I'm hoping and dreaming the VR is going to be everything I wish games used to be.
And the thing that's crazy about the VR too is, like, the first time, we tried it, we had the DK1 here. You remember we played around with the DK1 like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It's been a long time now. And it was so shitty. I mean, the headset, it's so shitty, but like, that was such a huge moment where I was like, damn,
it was still really cool.
I see where because games for me was always, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I was using it because there was nothing better. Like, I was trying to use it to get what I wanted out of them. Which, because I do enjoy, like, experiencing these stories and experiencing these worlds and stuff that games can do pretty well.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, as a kid, I could get into games a lot better than I could as an adult. I mean, it sucks, but it's just the truth. Like, when I was a kid, like, I'd play Myst, and I have memories of Myst as if I was there. Like, that's how strong my immersion was at the time. But nowadays, that's not how it is. But with VR, it is.
Yeah, like, I tried to play Ethan Carter, and it's a beautiful looking game, and I'm able to turn the graphics all the way up.
I remember watching you play out here in our projector, and you see the big screen, and it helped.
It's pretty cool
because it gets you a little bit closer to that full field of view thing.
Yeah,
but it's still flat and it's still.
And at the end of the day, it's still these core mechanics that games kind of have to work with.
Sure.
You're still just kind of walking up to stuff and pressing X at the core of a lot of interaction, and so. It kind of does. It either does or doesn't work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's funny you bring up Ethan Carter. I haven't heard much about it recently, but I know that they're, at least in the past, they were working on actually remaking it for VR.
Yeah.
Like, with that as intent. And that's one of those games where I think in VR it'll be incredible because it's a visual thing. Because VR is in the real world, I don't actually ask for hardcore mechanics all the time. Sometimes I just want things to be. But at least I'm there. At least I'm experiencing it.
Yeah.
So those kinds of games. Sounds like and actually Ethan Carter's it seems like a very relaxing game until later, from what I understand.
Yeah.
I haven't actually beaten it. I've only played
a lot of the earlier
of it,
moments. You can just stop it at any point, and it's just cool.
Like walking across that cool bridge right in the beginning, that railroad track bridge. I tried to do that in real life, dude. When I'm back in Washington, when I was back home in Washington, because we actually went to a giant, I don't know how many hundreds of feet high it was, huge. And I did walk out onto the middle of it, but then I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. So freaky. So my whole body is shaking right now just thinking about it. But I want to do that in Ethan Carter where I'm heights is, it's a rational fear. It's not an irrational one. But in VR, it would be irrational because you know better. So you can actually enjoy these beautiful vistas. And
there's a lot of games that are trying to kind of hooked themselves into this VR potential, like Elite Dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know if Star Citizen is...
Star Citizen, they have talked about VR, and they do want to support it, and they've talked about how they're going to be pushing it harder this year to get the VR support going. But it's, the game itself isn't even close to being out as far as we know.
Yeah. And I'm going to love a great space game, and I have Elite Dangerous, by the way, but I have to say, I don't think there's... And I've played it in VR too. Which was awesome with the controls. Oh, that was super.
Oh
cool.
Yeah, because they actually kind of matched the joystick setup.
Awesome joystick setup.
Yeah, I have the X52, the SciTech X52.
Yeah, so I mean, and we played that with a DK2, was it?
No, the DK1.
DK1. Okay.
Yeah, so there was no positional tracking. It was just head tracking, for movement.
And it was fun.
It was fun.
You could totally. Yeah. I mean, it gave you a clear advantage in dogfighting.
Totally. Be able to look up around. Oh, it's crazy.
I think I'm not sure what these games are. I'm not sure what they really think as developers. They've got to be thinking more clearly about what's going on. I mean, it's great that they add VR support. I'm all for it, but the ambitions of these games, especially the space games, which
so much ambition.
I'm rooting them on. Don't get me wrong, because I want an awesome one. But I feel like I'm not sure if they know that they're selling hopes and dreams a lot of the times, or if they really believe in what they say.
I think they know it. They have to know it. I mean, especially like even the game. Like when I watch like different developers talk, I think some of them are more honest than others. Like No Man's Sky, for example, is one of those games that makes a lot of big promises.
Yeah.
And whenever I watch like the developer talk about it, I feel like he kind of half knows that he's selling dreams, and ambitious. Like he has really ambitious ideas. I mean, and I think he wants it to be that good. I think all those developers want their games to be what they're selling. What they're telling you it can potentially be. Like Star Citizen obviously is the biggest example of this, where they had like the most ambitious plans of any game ever made. But
yeah, I mean they just get that one is pretty notorious for it too. On another level specifically.
Yeah,
I've actually seen some controversy going on Reddit.
It's because of how much money
just showing up. Where I'm just like, what? Where I'm not specifically following the Reddit, but it gets so like blown up. It reaches out into whatever the front pages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because apparently, I mean, how much money?
They're in the hundreds of millions at this point. I'm not sure how much exactly, but for a game that's completely crowdfunded, essentially,
it's insane.
It's bizarre. I mean, it's up there. It's getting close to like Destiny numbers or whatever. It's crazy.
But when you look at what they're saying this game is going to be, it's kind of like it's the game that if I sat most gamers down and said, what's your dream space game? They would pretty much describe Star Citizen.
Yeah, I mean, I bought into Star Citizen like a year and a half ago. Now, I'm the worst. I don't pre-order many games. I've pre-ordered a few VR titles just to kind of support VR because I'm excited about it. And I bought Star Citizen because I'm partially for VR. But yeah, I mean, I put $75 into Star Citizen. I don't even touch it. Yeah. Because it's not there yet, and I don't even want to like be corrupted by this early phase.
Yeah.
When they say it's done, it's VR ready, I'm gonna start playing that game. And I've
seen you bust it out a few times, just seen some cool graphics.
Because I just want to update every once in a while. It's huge, like it's like over 100 gigabytes. Like we tried to install it out here one time, and we were like, shit, we can't. There's no way. It's just there's not enough space out here. So in my room, I've done it a couple times, but I always have to uninstall it right away because it just takes up too much of my space. And it does, obviously my computer doesn't have like a 9, it doesn't have like a Titan or anything,
Yeah.
So it can't really run it at many more than like 12 frames per second.
And that's where what's weird, like it's tough to, I don't know what to think about a game like that. It's like, do you cheer them on? Or do you kind of just say, guys, what the fuck are you doing?
I cheer them on, but at the same time, they need to like hire more people if they need to. Like they have so much money. If it's necessary to hire more people, just do it. Like because I want that to succeed. I want that game to succeed. It's like, it is my dream game. It's essentially Star Wars, in this huge world where I have my own cool kick-ass ship. And there's a single player element to it called Squadron 42, which I'm excited about. Which I'm actually probably most excited about.
And that's another topic I wanted to hit on. This whole split between single player and multiplayer. the kind of like what's particularly interesting about it in the gaming community is you get a lot of people who are very vocal about wanting single player, like, you know, being that's what they're into, that's what they care about, that's what they want. And you do have a number of successful single player games. We love to point out Last of Us, you know, it's one of those big ones. But you overwhelmingly games that are multiplayer are pulling in way more cash overall. Oh, yeah. Just way more. It just overshadows what the single player games are pulling in. And so what you've got is this weird pseudo promise that a lot of game companies make, like Titanfall and
Titanfall.
I think Destiny says it has a single player too, but where they're like,
I'm not sure.
where they know it's like good. It's good points with the community to say, hey, we're making a single player campaign, but in reality, they really, really less than even half-ass it.
Yep.
They put all their effort into the multiplayer, and oddly enough, most of the people don't really care. The game just sells.
Frustrating.
They don't. Many of those people don't even open the single player.
I know.
They just jump right into the multiplayer. They know statistically this is happening because they just watch how their game gets used.
Yeah. Yep.
And but they still have to say. But if they were to have gone full blast and say, no, we're not even going to do single player, they would get a lot of crap from the community.
Yeah.
So it's like they have to make that up. It's so weird.
It's so tacky feeling.
But you know, like if they're just honest and they say no single
it's
player,
just a multiplayer game.
Multiplayer, they would get a bunch of crap for it.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I mean, because for me, I'm a total story person. I don't even play the multiplayer stuff at all. But when I did play a few multiplayer things, it was usually after I finished the campaign.
Yeah.
But so many people I know, they would just jump right in because they're good. Like, I don't play enough to become great. And so multiplayer is miserable for me.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Those
like,
kinds of
I play single player because I want to experience the story and all this kind of stuff. But I'm not the gamer.
That's another thing that multiplayer games have turned into. Anything that's multiplayer becomes incredibly competitive and becomes kind of an elite gaming community. And actually, right away.
The only multiplayer game that I've ever actually played, like dedicated play, has no campaign, and that's TF2.
Yeah.
It was literally like, here, this is what we are. We have it's just not a single player game ever. It's pure multiplayer. Just play. Which I think is, at least honest of them.
Sure.
Like I knew what I was getting myself into, and I played it, and I did get pretty decent at that game, and I really enjoyed it, and I could get competitive, but then I got angry competitive, and I had to take a step back from it. But I really do just think that it's too bad. The single player games, if there was, I just wish they made more money. I wish they made the money so that companies made them.
Well, and this is where I have a lot of faith for VR. Is I'm not sure how well multiplayer is going to work with VR. I have great hopes and dreams for it, but I have a feeling that the single player, at least right out the gate, when the gates are unleashed, it's going to have a head start. Whereas multiplayer is going to have more problems to solve. Single player, I think, will have less problems to solve. So we'll just get those first. So it'll kind of be it'll be a little safe haven for that experience for a while.
Sure.
Until I don't know, but also I wonder because a lot of what's happening in multiplayer today, if you watch people play these things who play multiplayer games. It's a huge it's not the same as someone who plays a single player game. Their kind of involvement they have in these things.
Sure.
It's it may be the first few nights they play it, but not month 2, month 4, and so on.
Yeah. No.
It's not like playing a session of Last of Us or any other single player game like Metro. That was a fun FPS I had a lot of fun with for a while. You don't get a lot of games like that.
Yeah, back in the day, a lot of things like that. I mean, I just like my things to have ends. It's just something I personally like. I like to start something and know it has an ending.
Yeah, it's weird to think. What if a movie was like a game where you could come home and turn that movie back on and watch another 4 hours of it every evening, and you would still be like, man, I can't wait to go home tomorrow night and watch this same movie again. Like, imagine if that was worked, and you're telling someone about this movie, and you're like, man, that movie's got like 65 hours of watch time in it, and they're like, and the person you're telling it to is going, yes, like that's how games are described. It's bizarre. That's what has happened in the community.
Yeah, the whole play hours thing drives me nuts. I think it's the most. It's something that's with a single player campaign, it's totally a fair.
It's a fair thing to say.
You know, like saying, yeah, this is an 8-hour long campaign. This is a 4-hour long campaign. Like that Firewatch game, which I still haven't played at all yet, but I know it's like a 4-hour game, basically.
Sure, yeah.
But I know it's a single player game, and that's 4 hours, and that sounds awesome. That's great. But at least they're honest about how long it is, you know? And I think that's fair. Why? Because it was like a $15 or $20 game or something. So like if it was a $60 single player game and they're like, it's only 4 hours long, then I'd be like, nah, you know? But it's crazy because they can do the same amount of work to create a multiplayer game and say it has like infinite playability, you know? And that's why there's so much money in that damn multiplayer nonsense. No, but I'm just hoping that some single player stuff really pops in the VR world.
Well,
or at least small groups of multiplayer. Like, you know, like remember games where it's like you could play a solo campaign, but like if your friend came on, they could just join you.
Yeah.
And you just play together because like they're a friend and they're actually a person that you know they're not going to be if they're obnoxious, you know it, you know, you kind of already know who they're going to be rather than some random person out there. But it's really all about that kind of stuff in the VR world. I'm hoping that it causes enough of a separation between the traditional gaming and this new, hopefully better future.
VR Mario.
Yeah, I think this is actually...
What would it even be?
I think this is actually a really important thing because the VR Mario is like, a lot of people think Lucky's Tale, for example. Let's talk about like Lucky's Tale. Like it's a third-person platformer. It looks like, you know, a lot like 64.
Mario 64.
Here's what really drives me nuts about this, okay? Because what was Mario before Mario 64? It was a side-scroller, right? Total side-scroller.
Yeah.
And all you do is jump and bounce and shoot fireballs and stuff. When Mario 64 came out, it was a complete change of the game. The entire format is different. It's not the same game anymore. Like, it's the same world, but it's not the same game. You know, it's whole new mechanics. And so it drives me nuts that I think people want that in VR. Like people
want their existing games.
Yeah, they want like Mario 64, a third-person platformer in VR for some reason. But that's not what made Mario 64 great, or being like the one before isn't what made Mario 64 great. Being completely different is what made Mario 64 great.
Yeah. From
the previous Mario games. Why would we want to do that same game in VR?
It'd be kind of like playing a side-scroller in 3D.
Yeah, like it can be done and stylistically and it can be nice looking.
Yeah.
But it's not revolutionary. It's literally just a visual update. Is pretty much what it is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not even. I mean, obviously, you can do 2D completely side scrollers, and it's still beautiful today. But Mario 64 is no longer a side scroller. I think there's versions of it that are still side scrollers, but the core ones, like Mario Galaxy and things like that, they're not side scrollers anymore. They have this new kind of the third dimension. With Mario, like with the Lucky's Tale, like I remember I played it, and I was just like, no, I'm not trying to diss on this game. It's just not my thing. It was literally I was playing a platformer on a flat monitor. That's how it felt. That's how my memories feel. It had a few little cool moments, but mostly it felt like a platformer.
I feel like that, if anything, that's one of those games that's riding more on the novelty of VR than any other.
Absolutely.
It's just selling you. Yeah, imagine Lucky's Tale without the VR element, just as a third-person platformer. Basically, just what kind of interest would that pull for you? And you got to ask yourself: is the only reason you're paying attention to this game is because they've added the fact that you can look at it in the VR world?
Yeah,
that's not going to last very, very long. It's not going to last more than a couple levels, more than an hour.
And that game is like an ultimate example of a game that is just an old game on a new platform. It's you're using a controller, because when I played it, I remember you had like a very short demo at E3, and you can only choose one demo. And I chose Lucky's Tale because previously I had chosen Eve Valkyrie, and so I got to try Eve Valkyrie already. And so I got Lucky's Tale, and I was playing it for a few minutes, and I was like, I'm done. Like I know what this is now. Like it's the exact same thing as all these games I'd played in the past. And it's like not necessarily it might not be as good even, like Jack and Daxter, for example, like the characters were really, really vibrant and the world was really fun. Obviously my demo wasn't very long, and Lucky himself is quite adorable. Like it's cool that he kind of looks at you and it feels like he's making eye contact. There's little tiny things like that are quite nice in VR in comparison to on the flat screen. But everything else, it was really just like playing the same old. But and let's face it, like Jak and Daxter is probably going to go down in history as a better game than Lucky's Tale, just because Jak and Daxter is such a solid game, for what it is. Like, the world's very vibrant and alive, where I think Lucky's Tale was a little bit, it wasn't that exciting. I actually ended up playing it for a few minutes, and then I yelled out, hoping that someone was listening, to the attendant, and I said, hey, could I possibly change my demo? And he was kind enough to let me change my demo, and then I went just to do another demo of Eve Valkyrie because that's a good game. Because for me, I would love for someone to create a new Mario in VR.
Yeah. I think, and everyone wants to take the existing franchises and bring them into the new one. And while that is possible, what I don't think they realize is that you can't take the existing games and actually just VRify them. Mm-hmm. You actually have to come up with something completely new. We can put Mario in a VR world.
Yeah.
But it's not, and while it will be amazing to play Mario in VR, kind of like Lucky's Tale, that actually wears off pretty quickly. That doesn't make up for a whole new trek into game design or entertainment.
Yeah, because Mario
storytelling.
Yeah, you're saying bringing the worlds. Like, people want to. I think really what I think people want is to visit the worlds.
Yeah.
Again, in a new way, but it has to be a good way. It has to be like an improvement over the previous one, which I think Mario 64 to me is an improvement over what Mario was previously. I think it's a better, for me, it was more memorable. The world, felt alive and stuff like that a bit more. Yeah. But it was but again, they had to do a full revolution of the game. It's not the same game, same franchise, different game, like you were saying, where I think they need to do that, find a way to do that in VR. So I'm hoping it's not just like a Lucky's Tale, where you just here's a little Mario in front of you and he's running around, because I think it should be something new. They should try something new. Instead of just holding on to the same old things. I don't know what would work.
Which, to be fair, it's hard to do.
It is, and it's a risk, and people don't like taking risks.
It's very difficult. No one exactly knows what that something new is, but damn it, do it anyway. I agree.
What? Can we not do a first person Mario game? I'm just saying, I think it could be done. You just gotta try it, Mario people. Because don't just stick with the old. You gotta push forward. No one remembers the people who just copy unless they do a really good job copying.